Life as an ordinary teenager was already challenging for Miles, who has been finding it difficult to please his dad. It gets worse when a radioactive spider bites Miles and develops powers similar to Spider-Man's. But can there be more than one Spider-Man? Will Miles be able to fit into the demands of this new life? The scene cuts to a teenager, Miles Morales, sitting in his room in Brooklyn. Miles is reminded by his dad, Jefferson Davis, in the morning that he must pack his things and prepare for his new school. From Miles's attitude, it is obvious that he is not excited about going to school. He declines Jefferson's offer for a ride and tells with his parents that he would rather walk down. On the way, Jefferson drives up to where Miles is. Having no other option, Miles had to join Jefferson in his car. Jefferson, a police officer, drives Miles to school against his wish. While Miles loves Spider-Man, his dad sees Spider-Man as a menace because he often gets the praise that should go to police officers. Miles isn't too happy about changing schools because he feels the place is for richer kids. He would have preferred to remain with his friends in the other school. But sadly, the decision is not for him to take. At the school gate, Jefferson insists that his son must tell him he loves him too. Walking inside the school for the first time, Miles doesn't have any friends, and to make matters worse, he is scolded by one of his teachers for coming late to class. Miles jokes about his lateness, which gets the attention of a female student, Gwen Stacy. After class, Miles and Gwen get talking, and Miles is excited that he now has a friend. Miles fails his test at school and gets summoned by his teacher. From Miles' scores, the teacher had concluded that Miles was trying desperately to be kicked put of the school. Instead of recording the scores for him, she decides to set a new test for him. Miles's teacher warns that she was not going to allow him fail and be kicked out of the school. Feeling burdened about his school and family, Miles sees his uncle, Aaron Davis. Miles and Aaron discuss his new school for a while, and then Aaron takes him to an abandoned subway station to paint graffiti to cheer him up. There, Miles learns that Aaron and his dad, Jefferson, used to be very close before they drifted apart. Aaron tells Miles that he used to come down here with Jefferson years back, and this was something that he missed. As Miles and Aaron are about to leave, Miles is bitten by a radioactive spider, but he shakes it off, thinking it is a regular spider. The following day, Miles starts noticing some odd changes in his body. He is surprised by these changes and starts trying to figure out what is wrong with him. He dresses up for class and notices some changes in his body. At school, Miles meets up with Gwen and attributes the changes to puberty. Things get more interesting when Miles's hand sticks to Gwen's hair. All his efforts to remove his hand from her hair proved futile, and Gwen had to shave off part of her hair to separate herself from Miles. From here on, Miles's hands began to stick uncontrollably to surfaces. Miles is ashamed due to the incident with Gwen and walks around the school with that guilt. It was obvious that he now had abilities similar to Spider-Man. The only problem was controlling it, and there was no one he could confide in. Gwen notices that Miles is walking on the school walls, and parts of Miles's body were sticking to the walls. She keeps the observation to herself and just sighs. Not knowing what to do, Miles calls his uncle, but discovers that Aaron is not around for now. Miles returns to the subway station to look at the spider that had bit him and confirms that it is not like the regular spider. Returning to the station, he discovers a collider built by the Kingpin, who hopes to access parallel universes to bring back his late wife and son. Kingpin had lost his wife and son years back while fighting with Spider-Man. Kingpin's late wife walked in on him and left angrily. Together with her son, they got into an accident while she was driving and lost their lives. Kingpin wanted them back, even if it meant destroying the world or other people's lives, and Spider-Man was not going to allow this to happen. Spider-Man attempts to turn off the collider while fighting Kingpin's henchmen, Green Goblin and the Prowler. During the fight, Spider-Man sees Miles and observes that they had similar abilities. He promises to teach him how to use his powers after the fight against Kingpin. Seeing how sad and confused Miles is about his condition, Spider-Man tells him that no one ever chooses this life. It was something that Miles had to live with forever. Green Goblin shoves Spider-Man into the collider, causing an explosion that kills Goblin and wounds Spider-Man. Spider-Man gives Miles a USB flash drive to turn off the collider, warning that the machine could destroy the city. Miles promises Spider-Man that he will use the flash drive to stop Kingpin, and Spider-Man urges him to hide when he came closer. Kingpin kills Spider-Man as Miles watches in horror and flees. Miles makes some sounds while he is running away, getting Kingpin's and his men's attention. Kingpin orders Prowler to kill him, but Miles escapes and returns home. Miles is supposed to be in school, but enters his room through the window. His parents rushed over to his room to find that he was around. Jefferson is not too happy about Miles leaving school, but his wife pleads with him to allow Miles to stay for the night. That same night, the news of Spider-Man's death makes headlines, and the death of the superhero saddens the whole city. As the city mourns Spider-Man's death, Miles tries to honor his legacy and become the new Spider-Man, but inadvertently damages the drive. At Spider-Man's grave, he meets Peter B. Parker, an older and worn-down version of Spider-Man from another dimension. The Spider-Man from another dimension, Peter, is informed by Miles of the situation. Miles asks Peter to train him, but he refuses. All that Peter was concerned about was returning to his dimension. Miles hands over the damaged flash drive to Peter, who is disappointed in Miles for destroying it. Meanwhile, Peter is nothing like the dead Spider-Man. He was in bad shape physically and had ruined his life in an alternate universe with the wrong decisions. Peter's wife had left him because he didn't want to have children. Peter barely had a life anymore. All he did was stay indoors and eat burgers. The two infiltrate Kingpin's research facility to steal data for a new flash drive. Peter instructs Miles to wait outside and stand guard on getting to the facility. Immediately, Peter goes inside the building. Kingpin and his men arrive. Seeing the Kingpin, Miles becomes scared for Peter and rushes inside to warn him of the new development. Peter is shocked that Miles cares so much about him and is glad that at least someone doesn't want to see him dead. At the same time, Miles and Peter watch from the roof as Kingpin tells the mad scientist, Olivia Octavius, to hurry up with the work. Since Kingpin and Octavius were chatting, Miles and Peter decided it was the best time to get the data for the new flash drive. Miles also discovers that he can now turn invisible, a new psychic power that even Peter does not have. Peter sees this and is amazed by it. They are confronted by Octavius, who discovers that Peter will die from cellular decay if he remains in their dimension. Gwen Stacy, a Spider-Woman from another dimension, saves Miles and Peter. Gwen reveals to the duo that Kingpin's experiments brought her into this dimension. Gwen is the Spider-Woman in her dimension, and Peter Parker is her best friend there. Back in her dimension, Gwen could not save Peter's life. After the death of Peter, she started living a lonely life. She focused on her heroic duties and refused to make any new friends. At the same time, Kingpin is furious that Spider-Man has multiplied. Octavius calms him down and informs Kingpin that the presence of multiple Spider-Man meant that their experiment was working. Soon enough, he would have his family by his side. The heroes all visit Spider-Man's aunt, May Parker. She is sheltering more spider people who slipped into Miles's universe from other dimensions due to the Collider explosion. Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham, who are also deteriorating. Miles offers to help the others return home, but they tell him he lacks experience. Miles had zero control over his abilities. Miles retreats to Aaron's home, distraught, discovering that Aaron is the Prowler. He returns to the home of Spider-Man's aunt, May Parker, where Penny has completed the new drive. Kingpin, Prowler, Octavius, Scorpion, and Tombstone follow him. In the ensuing brawl, he reveals his identity to Aaron. Unwilling to kill his own nephew, Aaron spares Miles, but is fatally shot by Kingpin in retaliation and dies in Miles's arms. Miles flees just as his father arrives on the scene. Jefferson mistakes the fleeing Spider-Man for Aaron's murderer. The heroes regroup with a devastated Miles in his room. They all comforted him by sharing their woe tales of how they had lost a loved one, whom they could not protect with their powers. Next, Miles's roommate enters the room and instantly faints when he sees multiple Spider-Men glued to the ceiling. The heroes inform Miles that they are still going on with the plan. Peter chooses to sacrifice himself by staying behind and deactivating the Collider. Miles argues that he should be the one to do it, but Peter reminds him that he still hasn't learned how to control his powers. It would be dangerous for him to come face to face with Kingpin's pin. Since Miles is unwilling to back down, Peter uses his spiderweb to tie Miles down to a chair and closes his mouth. Before leaving, Miles asks Peter how he will know he is ready to use his powers. Peter tells him that no one ever masters their powers, and all he needed was a leap of faith. Jefferson arrives outside Miles's door, and when Miles doesn't open up the door, Jefferson stays outside and expresses his faith in Miles. The words from Jefferson inspire Miles, and with this new boost, Miles manages to control his powers and creates his own Spider-Man suit. He joins the heroes, defeating Kingpin's enforcers and using the new drive to send them home. Peter is reluctant to return home because he fears failing again, but Miles reassures him that he will surely make better decisions this time. Kingpin fights Miles as Jefferson watches and realizes that Spider-Man isn't a menace. His encouragement of Spider-Man gives Miles the strength to throw Kingpin at the kill switch, causing the collider to explode. The city is saved, Kingpin and his henchmen are arrested, and Jefferson receives evidence of Kingpin's murders of Peter and Aaron. Miles calls Jefferson on the phone, and they both reunite. Miles embraces the responsibilities of his new life. In an alternate universe, Peter visits his ex-wife with a flower and seems like it will be a fresh start for him. Later, Gwen finds a way to contact Miles from her dimension. In another dimension, Miguel O'Hara, also known as Spider-Man 2099, travels to Earth 67 and argues with Spider-Man. If you enjoyed watching this video, hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to help the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.